Madam Secretary, I think we're ready to begin.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. This is the City Planning Commission public meeting held in Spector Hall, 22 Reade Street. Today is Wednesday, May 24, 2017. As a courtesy during the proceedings, we ask that you please turn off all cell phones and beepers. All speakers should fill out speaker's card at the desk outside of Spector Hall. In addition, we ask that those providing testimony please identify yourself, limit your remarks to 3 minutes, and speak clearly into the microphone. I will now call the roll. Chair Lago,
Here.
Vice Chairman Knuckles, Commissioner Besser,
Here.
Commissioner Cantor,
Here.
Commissioner Cerullo,
Here.
Commissioner De La Use,
Here.
Commissioner Dweck, Commissioner Edie,
Here.
Commissioner Efron,
Here.
Commissioner Knight,
Here.
Commissioner Levin,
Here.
Commissioner Marin,
Here.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Here.
A quorum is present. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, May 10th, 2017.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved.
Scheduling. On calendar numbers 1 through 9, we have resolutions for adoption, scheduling Wednesday, June 7th, 2017, for a public hearing to be held in Spector Hall, 22 Reade Street.
On the resolution, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? The resolutions are adopted.
The next part of the calendar is the report section on page 22. Borough of Queens, calendar numbers 10 and 11. Calendar number 10, CD3, C170162, ZMQ. Calendar number 11, N170163, ZRQ. In the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning 74-04 Northern Boulevard rezoning. For favorable reports on calendar numbers 10 and 11. Chair Lago,
Yes.
Commissioner Besser,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor,
Yes.
Commissioner
Thank the
Cerullo?
applicant for,
Sorry.
For clarifying my concerns regarding e-designation.
And is that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Cerullo,
Yes.
Commissioner De La Use,
Yes.
Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Efron,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin,
Yes.
Commissioner Marin,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Yes.
Favorable reports have been adopted on calendar numbers 10 and 11. Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 12, CD5, C170112, ZSM, in the matter of an application for the grant of a special permit concerning 242 West 53rd Street parking garage. For a favorable report on calendar number 12, Chair Lago,
Yes.
Commissioner Besser,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor,
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo,
Yes.
Commissioner De La Use,
Yes.
Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Efron,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin,
I just can't support the idea of additional parking spaces at this location so close to the heart of the theater district. I think in this case, the Department of City Planning's guidelines for the residential growth special permit are illogical at this location. We just don't know what the residential need really is in the immediate vicinity. The applicant assumes that 100% of the spaces will be used overnight by residents, but we wonder if that's reasonable since this garage is particularly championed by theater owners. The applicant is requesting a 42% parking ratio in this garage, which is far beyond what census data has shown for even the most wealthy residents. So I vote no.
Commissioner Marin,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 12. Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 13, CD4, N170251, ZRM, in the matter of an application for an amendment of the zoning resolution concerning the section 93-122 text amendment. For a favorable report on calendar number 13, Chair Lago,
Yes.
Commissioner Besser,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor,
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo,
Yes.
Commissioner De La Use,
Yes.
Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Efron,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin,
Yes.
Commissioner Marin,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 13. Borough of Staten Island, calendar numbers 14 and 15, calendar number 15, CD2, N170197, ZAR, calendar number 15, N170198, ZAR, in the matter of applications for the grant of authorizations concerning the boulevard at Highland Plaza for adoption on calendar numbers 14 and 15. Chair Lago,
Yes.
Commissioner Bessa,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor,
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo,
Yes.
Commissioner De La Us,
Yes.
Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Efron,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin, Commissioner Marin,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Yes.
Calendar numbers 14 and 15 have been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 16, CD3 N170324 RCR, in the matter of an application for the grant of a certification concerning 286 Bradford Avenue for adoption on calendar number 16. Chair Lago,
Yes.
Commissioner Bessa,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor,
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo,
Yes.
Commissioner De La Us,
Yes.
Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Efron,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin, Commissioner Marin,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Yes.
Calendar number 16 has been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 17, CD3 N170288 RCR, in the matter of an application for the grant of a certification concerning 337 and 341 South Railroad Street for adoption on calendar number 17. Chair Lago,
Yes.
Commissioner Bessa,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor,
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo,
Yes.
Commissioner De La Us,
Yes.
Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Efron,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin,
Yes.
Commissioner Marin,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Yes.
Calendar number 17 has been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 18, CD1 N160257 ZCR, in the matter of an application for the grant of a certification concerning 802-810 Van Duzer Street for adoption on calendar number 18. Chair Lago,
Yes.
Commissioner Bessa,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor,
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo,
Yes.
Commissioner De La Us,
Yes.
Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Efron,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin, Commissioner Marin,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Yes.
Calendar number 18 has been adopted. The next part of the calendar is the public hearing section on page 32. Borough of Queens, calendar numbers 19 through 26. Calendar number 19, CD14 N170245 HGQ. Calendar number 20, C170246 HUQ. Calendar number 21, C170247 HDQ. Calendar number 22, C170248 PPQ. Calendar number 23, C170243 ZMQ. Calendar number 24, C170243A ZMQ. Calendar number 25, N170244 ZRQ. Calendar number 26, N170244A ZRQ. A public hearing in the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments, URP designation, disposition of urban renewal site, acquisition and disposition of city-owned property concerning the downtown Far Rockaway development plan. Notice, a public hearing is being held by the City Planning Commission in conjunction with the above ULUP hearings to receive comments related to a draft environmental impact statement. This hearing is being held pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act and the City Environmental Quality Review.
We're going to have a team application, and given the richness of the questions from the commission, we determined that we would ask the applicant teams to limit their presentations to 10 minutes to give more time to the commissioners to tease out the matters that are of particular interest. So at this point, if I could ask the applicant team, Nate Bliss is going to be presenting, and a number of other members of the applicant teams are also available to be able to answer questions.
Good morning. Chair Lago, members of the City Planning Commission. My name is Nate Bliss, and I'm a Senior Vice President at EDC for Development. At EDC, it is our goal to make New York City the global model for inclusive innovation and economic growth, fueled by the diversity of our people and our businesses. We are dedicated to bolstering the city's economy, strengthening its neighborhoods, and increasing economic opportunity for all New Yorkers. I'm very excited to talk to you today about the work we've been doing in downtown Far Rockaway, which very much exemplifies these goals. I would like to begin by thanking the Department of City Planning staff, and particularly Brendan Pilar and John Young, for their hard work with us throughout this effort. Thank you also to the commissioners who joined a recent tour of the rezoning area with the EDC and DCP staff. Later this afternoon, you will hear testimony from our agency partners, with whom we worked closely to craft the comprehensive proposals before you today. I'm also joined by members of the EDC team, as well as our EIS consultants, who are available to answer specific technical questions. This has been an incredible interagency effort to get to this point, and I am humbled to be the one to share some details with you about the plan. Downtown Far Rockaway was historically the commercial, institutional, and transportation hub of the Rockaway Peninsula. It was a place where residents of the peninsula, and even of Nassau County and beyond, came to shop and eat, take in a movie or a show, visit their doctor or accountant, and connect to other places in the city via the subway or Long Island Railroad. It was known, and indeed is still known, as the Village. But a lot has changed since its heyday. As the peninsula transitioned from a vacation community to a place of permanent residence, lower income populations and public housing stock was increasingly concentrated in the eastern portion of the peninsula. Changing consumer preferences for retail and an increasing reliance on the automobile left the village's commercial corridors struggling. With little access to jobs, goods, and services, and with absentee owners sitting on languishing properties, downtown Far Rockaway was stuck in a cycle of decline. For too long, a lack of city attention compounded these problems, allowing stagnation to continue without a framework for growth. Indeed, current zoning, which dates back to the 1960s, limits the sort of mix of live, work, play uses that have been the hallmark of downtown Main Street revivals across the country and in New York City. And while this area is one of the few places on the peninsula located outside of the floodplain, the effects of Sandy were felt here too, as months of transit service interruptions and electricity outages highlighted vulnerabilities. The result is that today, downtown Far Rockaway, once a bustling and vibrant gateway to Queens and New York City, does not serve its residents like it could. Since 2014, EDC has been leading an interagency effort in close partnership with DCP to revitalize this portion of the peninsula. In late 2015, Councilmember Richards formed the Downtown Far Rockaway Working Group with the aim of developing recommendations for reviving the area. The working group is composed of elected officials, as well as representatives from the business, nonprofit, and residential community. With the working group, we have held dozens of meetings over the past 2 years, from small group and one-on-one meetings to large format community workshops, outreach that has helped shape the actions before you today. Throughout this outreach, we've heard that this community is eager for change. There is a desire for diverse retail options and neighborhood amenities. There is strong interest in activating long vacant, neglected properties in the area. A common concern is access to jobs, particularly for the over half of the local population that is younger than 35, ensuring they are prepared for a changing economy. And we have heard that there is a need for affordable housing at diverse income levels to ensure that residents, young and old, can stay and grow in their community. In response to the working group's outreach and recommendations, in February of 2016, Mayor de Blasio pledged $91 million in capital funding for the revitalization of downtown Far Rockaway. Later that year, EDC and the interagency team released the Downtown Far Rockaway Roadmap for Action, a set of short, medium, and long-term strategies focusing on bringing back the village. The roadmap included strategies focused on land use and zoning, housing, transportation, public space, economic development, community services, and culture, all of which were conceived to work together to improve the quality of life for downtown Far Rockaway residents and unlock opportunity. Today, you are considering land use interventions that emerged from the Roadmap for Action, items that are crucial to activating the area and catalyzing investment. As you have heard in previous presentations, these actions include 1, the creation of an urban renewal area, 2, zoning map amendments, 3, zoning text amendments, including the mapping of an MIH area, and 4, the disposition of city-owned property. Instead of recapping these proposed actions, I will instead focus my testimony on how these actions work hand in hand with other city efforts to accomplish the plan's goal. First, it is worth highlighting our efforts to address the state of infrastructure and the built environment in Far Rockaway, and how these investments interact with the proposed land use changes before you. The roadmap for action includes implementation of a $20 million DOT streetscape and public realm improvement plan to improve circulation and reinforce downtown Far Rockaway as a place to live and visit. These enhancements will be augmented by $57 million in DEP water and sewer improvements to ensure adequate capacity for current and future residents. The city is also investing in a new state-of-the-art branch of the Queens Public Library, located at an important intersection of Mott and Central Avenues. However, the infrastructure investments alone won't lead to revitalization. And indeed, while these projects have been on the books for some time, it is unclear how successful they would be in the absence of a comprehensive plan and other interventions. The ability of the market to respond to the potentially catalytic investments is constrained by zoning that dates back to 1961 and doesn't allow for the type of development needed to sustain a vibrant downtown. Large areas of the downtown don't allow any housing today. Furthermore, there are long underutilized city-owned and privately owned properties for which a credible, actionable activation plan is critical to jumpstarting development activity in the district. New mixed-use development on these sites, unlocked by the land use actions before you, will ensure that more spending is captured on the peninsula instead of leaking to other nearby retail areas, including 5 towns in Nassau County. While new development will likely not compete directly with these mostly suburban-style retail offerings, our market analysis shows uncaptured spending potential, particularly for locals serving retail. New mixed-income housing will give retailers additional assurance of new customers, as well as provide a range of housing options for those who value the connectivity and offerings of living in a downtown setting. As mentioned, the land use actions will provide a framework for redevelopment of vacant and underutilized properties. The proposed disposition of the city-owned site at Beach 21st Street will provide new commercial and community facility space and significant new affordable housing in a key location just south of the A train station and a planned public plaza advanced by our colleagues at DOT. And the urban renewal area designation will provide the city with the tools necessary to ensure that the false starts of the past are not repeated and that activation of key, long vacant sites can be assured. Second, in conjunction with the land use actions, we are working to support the growth of local businesses and strengthening existing industries. Working closely with small business services and local partners, and supported by new development unlocked through the proposed rezoning, the city will help businesses identify the resources they need to grow and succeed. And this work has already begun. SBS, in partnership with EDC, and leveraging private investment from property owners, recently completed upgrades to 18 private retail storefronts in the downtown. These storefronts have made a huge difference for business owners, residents, and shoppers. In key areas, the proposed special district would require active ground floors to fill in the gaps along the existing commercial corridors and provide new open space to promote pedestrian activity and drive foot traffic. By tailoring parking requirements, we'll ensure that businesses and community facilities have ample parking to serve their employees and customers without unduly burdening development sites. In the long term, the proposed rezoning could result in almost 350,000 square feet of new commercial and community facility space, giving existing businesses room to grow and providing space to attract new employers. While this may seem ambitious, we believe the market will support a downtown Far Rockaway that hosts sit-down restaurants, clothing stores, entertainment, medical offices, and other professional and community services, catering to the surrounding communities. With the area's own history as our guide, we are confident that businesses will thrive in a growing downtown that meets more of the needs of the peninsula. And finally, we are keenly focused on connecting residents to job opportunities. We are working to empower the downtown Far Rockaway workforce through 1, improved access to job centers and major employers around the region, and 2, cultivating local opportunities wherever possible and targeting local residents for those opportunities. Since downtown Far Rockaway is geographically isolated, transportation options are critical in making physical connections for residents to jobs. To this end, we will...
If you could quickly wrap it up.
Sure. That's fine. As I conclude my testimony, I would like to just reiterate how important the public feedback was in developing this plan and crafting these recommendations. We've been working with the community since the initial formulation. We're also very encouraged by the approval both of the community board and of the borough presidents. And we've also taken key note of their recommendations. So I will close. I want to thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions about EDC's role as well as the plan overall.
Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Ifrah?
Hi, I have two quick questions, and maybe you can supply them if you, later, if you can't do them now. You mentioned a $91 million investment, and you mentioned $20 million for DOT and $57 for DEP. If you could itemize the rest of the investments to make sure that our land use actions and the work of the city with capital dollars or operating dollars are mutually supportive.
Sure. We
And
can
then
provide you
the
that information.
next question is whether EDC has worked with HRA and other social service agencies that seem to be providing contracts to so many of the storefront operators on the street just where the library site is. I've just forgotten the name of it, sorry. But there are a lot of storefront social service agencies that look as if they are city-funded agencies, and whether or not there can be greater transparency or some activity on the street now that the city is both making infrastructure investments as well as contract investments through its own agencies.
Great. We can absolutely look into that. Thank you.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Sorbo?
Hey, Nate. Just, and I just want to build off of Commissioner Efron's question. The breakout that you gave, the 20 and the 57 and that's part of, that's the 91 broken out, or is there 91 for something and then all those other numbers are in addition?
It's cumulative. So there was existing investments that were planned in the downtown Far Rockaway area. We have supplemented those investments with new pledge of capital dollars.
So the public realm and the DEP, that's not.
Not
It
part
may
of
or
the
may
91.
Not part of the 91, okay. So then, I guess the natural follow-up question for me, having a understanding of what some of these types of projects ultimately become in creating a certain quality of life for the community that you're trying to build, which of course supports the residents and the people who work there and new business. You talked about, and again, this may be a question for someone else on the team, but I'll pose it to you. Once the investments are made, some of them are not just specifically infrastructure in the sense that DEP does a new, water main and then they go away and the street gets closed up and life goes on. But some of these are parks related, public space related. Who will you or another agency continue to maintain or manage them? What's the long-term plan? I know you said you're working with local partners. What is the ultimate plan for the sort of in perpetuity for these things to continue to remain vibrant, active, and beneficial to the community?
Sure. Well, the ongoing maintenance of all of the new spaces created as well as the existing ones is a topic higher on our mind, and I don't think there is a universal across-the-board solution.
Okay.
Instead, we are looking at local organizational capacity, looking at the agency's operational budgets, looking on ways to incorporate maintenance responsibilities into future developer dispositions. It sort of runs the gamut, but it's certainly something that we are looking closely at.
So there isn't already the sort of roadmap to the result. You're still dealing with all those as
Correct.
this is.
As design progresses on each of these projects,
Got it.
that too will inform the maintenance program going forward.
Okay, and so I guess the assumption is there isn't a natural, existing natural fit, or perhaps there is, but it's not defined yet.
There are organizations on the ground with capacity. The Rockaway Development and Revitalization Corporation is a group we've done work with in the past, and indeed they have taken on some area maintenance responsibilities.
Okay.
But again, I don't think there is a universal solution. There's more of a sort of bespoke plan, but
Understood.
it is an issue that we are focused on.
Okay, great, thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Deleuze?
I'm just wondering, you mentioned that obviously you're looking into the recommendations that both the community board and the borough president have made. And, they really run the gamut from, decreasing the total number of units to increasing the parking, to, very specific recommendations related to public facilities and other infrastructure investments. Could you just speak to where the, where your thinking is at this point, or where the conversation is on those points at this time?
Sure, absolutely. It was a robust list of of recommendations that emerged from the community board, and we take them very seriously and have engaged in conversations with community board leadership, as well as the council person and the borough president subsequent. Some of the recommendations are problematic and run counter to some of the goals that are expressed by the plan. For example, replacing R6 zones with R5 would take us out of MIH, moving away from one of our major goals here, which is creating permanent affordable housing as part of any future development. But again, there's sort of a item-by-item response. We anticipate those conversations continuing through the ULURP process.
Okay.
Other questions from the commission? Commissioner Ortiz?
Hi, Nate, how are you? Some questions about the retail, and I had asked these during review session. It's noticeable that along Central Avenue, we've got, a lot of storefront churches, which suggests that, they're able to pay higher rents than a retail store at those locations. And the plan indicates there'll be about 153,000 additional square feet of retail. We know we have a shopping center in the middle that, and I'm not sure what the history of that center is. It might have been, poorly managed. That might be why it's shuttered. But, some of that suggests is there enough demand there to support more retail? Where are people going now? And so I was curious if you could speak to the market study and, the degree to which we do anticipate the ability to support all that new square footage, because we don't want it vacant and.
Of course.
And I don't know if people like the storefront churches, but we'll leave that we'll leave that
That
there.
one alone. Yeah. So as the commissioners well know, the retail landscape is shifting before us, and sort of the solutions that have been proffered in the past for this site, which really were to compete with the likes of the Five Towns or the Gateways or the large format automobile heavy retail attractions, is not the way that we are proposing to move forward at this point. Instead, what we discovered in our market analysis is that there is leakage of local serving retail for the populations in the immediate proximity, within walking distance of the downtown. So what we envision is sort of a bit of what's old is new again, is the original bones that made downtown Far Rockaway a commercial hub and gateway to the peninsula are potentially revivable. And we believe that there is a significant market, particularly when you think of not just the existing populations, but bringing in new populations and new development right into the downtown. So by doing that, by bringing a diversity of incomes and new discretionary dollars to be spent in local stores, we do believe that counters some of the market challenges that have been faced. And then you highlighted the point. We do believe that there's been mismanagement or missed opportunities to fully activate some of these properties. And we intend to create the correct incentives through zoning, as well as the powers through urban renewal to correct for some of those challenges.
So I guess specifically, does the market study indicate how much new retail can be supported, and are we hitting that sweet spot?
Yes, we are, and the program was an iterative process in which we were looking at the market data, making reasonable projections for what we thought could be supported, and what we are showing in the program is indeed, from our professional opinion, what we believe can be supported.
Okay, and another question, the water and sewer improvements, it occurred to me as you're speaking, I know that sometimes that can be very disruptive to businesses. In other communities, there have been attempts at mitigation. The last thing we want to do is create a situation where businesses suffer and then are not able to benefit after the improvements occur.
Yes.
So, has there been any thought given to how we might mitigate against the impact of that construction?
Sure. So as is typical for a city infrastructure projects such as this, which will include replacement of existing mains and sanitary systems and complete reconstruction, there will be disruptions. The current delivery mechanism that is contemplated for these projects is the Department of Design and Construction, and as is their typical approach on these projects, they would designate community liaisons to work with businesses to minimize interruptions wherever possible. And we would certainly work with DDC to ensure that we are minimizing that disruption as we invest in that infrastructure.
Thank you.
Other questions from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Levin.
Yeah, thank you. The shopping center site is obviously at the heart of this plan, and key to, and redevelopment of that site will be key to getting the vitality back that you're seeking, yet that is a privately owned site. I have kind of a two-pronged question that gets back to the same point, I think. And at the same time, there is a strong demand for the use of the mandatory inclusionary housing program here to produce more low-income housing. So you indicated in the beginning of your remarks that one of the things that led to the decline of this area was the concentration of public housing projects and a disinvestment by the city. How do we, it seems to me there's a tension in the goal of redeveloping the shopping center site with a mix of uses, including mixed income housing, at the same time using other sites to produce large amounts of affordable housing. How do we be sure that in the push and pull and the process that gets those various projects going, that we reach the appropriate balance, that we're not repeating the mistakes of the past, and that we really are getting an economic engine going here that can support everybody? Is there a development partner, a timeline for redevelopment of the shopping center site vis-a-vis the municipal parking lot? How is EDC going to keep all of these things moving forward in the right balance?
Thank you for the question, the multi-part question.
Yeah.
So first to the shopping center site. So the shopping center sites and its environs are indeed the subject of the Urban Renewal Plan action. So while it would be a tool of last resort, we would prefer that private transactions facilitate the speedy development of those parcels. We will reserve the right to be able to compel development. So we feel that this is the best fail-safe we can put in place to avoid the false starts of past efforts, and there have been many past efforts with this site. On affordability, and my colleagues from HPD will be taking the mic soon, so they can also speak to this. But our intention here and elsewhere across the city is really to achieve a balance in every project we do and in every district in which we are thinking comprehensively. So we are not talking about a exclusive concentration of low-income populations. So we envision a mix by building, by development site, and certainly throughout the district. That would actually provide some diversity of options for folks who perhaps live in public housing today, but the next level, the next income bracket rental stock is not available to them. So we are looking to span the complete spectrum of income offerings, and we think in doing so we can have a fully integrated and sustainable community here.
Other questions from the commission? If not, then we'll turn to speakers who have registered in opposition. If I could ask Dan Pappas.
First, I want to apologize. I'm not in opposition, I'm in approval. I left my eyeglasses home and I checked the wrong box. Forgive me. I feel silly about it.
Well, actually, Mr. Pappas, then we'll move you to later on the
Yes,
agenda.
sorry about that.
I share that challenge.
Don't get old.
I think many of us up here share the challenge. So if I could next ask then Mr. Patrick Malza. Patrick Matza.
Might be outside.
It's your moment in the sun.
Actually, I'm just here to support my business partner, and I wanted to actually clarify, we actually are in favor of the zoning. I made the same mistake. I'm with him.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So we'll call on you later
Yes,
then. Okay. Then I would ask Mr. Eugene Falick.
Are you really in opposition?
Well, stretching, my problem is stretching, not the... My name is Gene Falick. I'm speaking on behalf of the Bayswater Civic Association. And not in my testimony, but I would say that there are prevarications, there are lies, and then there's EDC. When I was a project leader at Exxon and Mobil, I learned that big, complicated problems can best be solved by a continuous process of breaking them into smaller pieces until we have pieces that we can easily comprehend. So the first question here is what to do with the Far Rockaway Business District, the village, or town as we call it. I won't go into the whole process here, which is discussed in a bit of detail in the written submissions, but the first question that you must determine is what is the purpose of this plan? Is it to revitalize the village, or is it to build housing regardless of the evil and negative impacts on Far Rockaway? There's a long history of dumping on Rockaway, beginning with Robert Moses. Our income and education levels have been pushed down for generations. Count on nursing home beds, public housing units, and other measures of a community's desirability. So first decide, will you dump on us again, or will you truly work to revitalize the area? If you want to revitalize the shopping district, then turn down the conversion of our only parking areas into housing. If you wish to continue dumping on us, approve the EDC plans. But I believe in your essential goodness, so I believe you will turn down this plan. If that is the case, consider exactly what the village's problems are and are not. In order to have a successful business district, you need people with disposable income. There are such people in the Far Rockaway area. To the east, we have Bayswater. To the west, we have Reed's Lane and West Lawrence, as they call it. But we don't shop in Far Rockaway. It takes us longer to drive to Far Rockaway than to drive to the 5 towns. We can't park. And if we get a summons, a $5 ticket in the 5 towns is $85 or God knows what, dealing with the PVP. So we need the ability to get there. We need the ability to park. We need stores that want to sell products to us and merchants who want us. And then the magic happens. And the magic will happen, and our village will be revitalized if you take actions to, number one, stop the housing on the only available parking. If you look at our submissions, we recommend, there are 300 parking spaces taken up by city employees and vehicles. There's no consideration of that. There isn't time to discuss this more. But if you read our responses, or you can see them right now online, you'll see that this is no solution to our problems.
Beautifully timed, Mr. Falick.
I worked on it.
And now I'll open it to commissioners for questions for Mr. Falick. Yes, Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi, how are you? I have a question. You mentioned
You
that...
get 2.
Thank you. You mentioned it's faster to drive to the 5 towns than it is to downtown Far Rockaway.
Correct.
So this plan doesn't change that. It focuses on downtown. It doesn't change the dynamics of the
Well,
road
no,
system.
what this town will
Wait, may
do-
I finish?
I'm sorry.
Okay. And then you mentioned that there's parking now downtown.
So,
and I'm sort of curious, what is it, if there's sufficient parking now, you know,
I didn't say that. There is some parking. You can drive around for a significant amount of time. If you were to eat in a restaurant, there probably is not long enough parking, because the parking is short-term, city's policies. No, I would say that there is not really parking. Probably half the spaces are taken up by city vehicles.
you know, I'm sort of curious because we're not changing the road system or in and around. It's going to continue to be easier in some ways to drive to these suburban locations than downtown Far Rockaway.
This is a suburban location.
We've got transit here, and I guess
No.
my question is, if we're adding 3,000 plus new residents, would that change the dynamics? Do you think that those residents would create demand for retail that currently doesn't exist? Because you're going elsewhere right now. So I'm
First
trying
of
to
all,
understand
3,000 apartments. EDC tells me that it will be 8,000 residents, and I submit that the overwhelming majority of their shopping will be in the 5 towns, for reasons which I get into in the written responses. But basically, look, I bank at Chase. If I go to the Far Rockaway branch, Chase has a little lot, and if I wait 10 or 15 minutes, usually a spot will open. The Chase branch is not a welcoming place in Far Rockaway. If you go to the Rockaway Turnpike branch, plenty of free parking, probably half the customers are from Far Rockaway. Now, if EDC wants to improve things, I submit they ought to ask Jamie Dimon for an appointment and ask what can be done. The post office, it's a beautiful landmark building. You guys were downtown. Did you visit the post office?
Yes, we walked
It
around.
looks like a dungeon inside. If you go to Lawrence, it's brightly lit. If you ask to see the post, first of all, the lines in Lawrence are probably 5 minutes, Far Rockaway 20 minutes. If you ask to see the postmaster in Lawrence, the postmaster walks out and says, "What can I do for you?" If you ask to see a supervisor in Far Rockaway, "Why do you want one?" Those things have to be addressed. And I can go on and on. In the other end of Rockaway, 90th Street, they had a Taste of Rockaway about 2 weeks ago. And all kinds of people went down and discovered the restaurants. Has anyone worked to do that in downtown Far Rockaway? And the answer is no. There are people with money to spend who would like to spend it in downtown.
Thank you.
But
Other questions?
we're not invited there.
Other questions for Mr. Felick from the commission? If not, then thank you, sir. Our next speaker in opposition will be Phyllis Rudnick.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today, City Planning Commission. My name is Mara Kravitz.
All right, Phyllis,
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Phyllis Rudnick?
Oh, sorry, I thought it was.
You're
Oh, my goodness.
I thought I was finally meeting her.
We appreciate your nuance.
Okay, I'm Phyllis Rudnick. I'm a Bayswater resident. I am a member of the Bayswater Civic Association. I totally agree with my colleague. Is it going to be revitalization or building houses? Look at this. This is up here. It goes from Mott all the way to Namio, and right across the street is Redfern, a low-income housing project, which is fine, except they want 60% low income here and 40% market rate. So, yes, it's a very big question that you're asking. What is going on? What are they doing? That they're fixing the streets and the water mains, that should have been done a long time ago. So they really can't take credit for this. It should have been done. And as far as the community board being for this. No, my husband is on the community board. They are not for this. They were for this as when they were told, they were for this in the sense that they were told that their input would be of great value and they would be heard. Well, they're heard. And so, yes, they voted for it. They voted to accept their ad hoc committee report, including an elementary school for the children of these 8,000 residents who are amongst them. It is assumed that there are going to be buses to take them to the various schools. Let's face it, they want to make the streets one lane in each direction. They're widening the sidewalks. The buses will come and the cars won't go. But I don't want to come to a place at whatever income and just put my kid on a bus and send him 20 blocks away or 15 blocks away for a school when he's a little one. I don't care what they do all over the city. I would be very nervous about that, particularly if you don't know where you are in a neighborhood. This is difficult. That is one of the things that the community board asked for. And we were told, we hear you. Well, everybody hears us. Nobody listens. You asked about the landscape and the parking. The police park on Cornega Avenue illegally. They're up on the sidewalks. I took my husband to get a haircut. There's a beautiful shop in town, Tony's. Gives gorgeous haircuts. If my husband could park 3 or 4 or 5 blocks away, that would be fine. But he can't. Can I finish my sentence?
Yes, please.
He can't do that. His wife has to take him to Tony's and then park in the shopping center where they're going to kill Food Dynasty as one main shopping center place. Because if I leave the car there, I'm going to get a ticket or towed. So he goes, he gets it, but why do I have to bring him to town? This is an example of everything that has to be done. Everybody has to be transported.
Thank you, Ms. Rudnick.
You're welcome.
Questions from the commission for Ms. Rudnick? Commissioner Deleuze.
Ms. Rudnick, I just want to make sure I understood something you said. So is your concern partly about the mix of incomes that would be in the new housing?
I'm not concerned about the people. I am concerned about the overload of a certain level. The city is looking to revitalize in the sense that they want shopping. It's really an admirable thing. And I also just want to say they're working very hard. I'm not demeaning them, but they're young. Okay? Yes, I'm afraid that that income won't be there for what they want to do.
Sure.
I was also told that people will hop off the subway and just go to all of these cute little cafes and restaurants at 6 o'clock at night just to go out and eat. It might happen. But in my experience, people go home and they take care of their families. So yes, I'm concerned. And I'm concerned that I, who have extra income, and Bayswater and West Lawrence and Reed's Lane and even Edgemere, because downtown Far Rockaway is the biggest shopping center, I am concerned because they don't want us. If they wanted us, and the people who went to every single meeting, I'll tell you what they asked for. The first thing they asked for was parking. Then they asked for better transportation. Then they asked for parking. And then they asked for cleaning up, which disturbed me because there is no plan to take care of all these beautiful plazas and scapes.
Ms. Rundin, one thing I would just, I don't know if this was discussed at the community level, but with mandatory inclusionary housing, 25 to 30% of the units would be affordable to a range of incomes. So it would primarily be market rate. Now, I know in the community board's recommendation that the recommendation was for it to be more deeply affordable, but I want to make sure that there's a correction of any misunderstanding about what mandatory inclusionary housing is.
Okay, I appreciate that, because why do we keep being told that it's going to be 60%?
Well, I think partly because the community board recommendation was for it to have a greater percentage of affordable units, because we have an affordable housing crisis in the city. But I know that the community may be particularly sensitive to that, given the concentration of
We have a
existing
tremendous
affordable housing.
concentration. The other thing is that the community
Ms.
board
Rudnick,
asked
if we could focus on answering questions
Oh,
of the
sure, I'm
commissioners.
sorry.
Other questions
Okay.
from the commission? If not, thank you very much for
Okay,
your
fine.
testimony.
Thank you.
And we'll now turn to the eager Mara Kravitz.
Welcome back.
Hi, thank you all very much. Sorry for the confusion. So my name is Mara Kravitz. I'm the Director of Partnerships at 596 Acres, which is New York City's community land access advocacy organization. I'm here today to request that you vote no on ULURP number 170248, PPQ. Now, this is just one of the several ULURPs that are included in the downtown Far Rockaway plan. In particular, it calls for the disposition of a vacant city-owned lot, Queens Block 15534, Lot 70, which is at the corner of Namioke and Augustina Avenue, to a private developer to build it according to the zoning, which will allow them to create 8 to 10 new suburban-style market rate housing units. It's zoned for single and two-family attached housing, and that's how many would fit. So this is the alternative. Is that it serves the public by being transformed into a community green space. So we've been working with organizers from the area who have put together this plan for the Far Rock Garden. And it's a community garden site. It's a compost site, and it's a place where, in partnership with the community board, residents would be able to create play space for children. You'll notice that the comments that the community board made call for this site to be kept public so that it can become a green space, which will be a small drop in the bucket to counteract the anticipated deficit of 11 acres of open space that's in the draft EIS for this plan. So we, 596 Acres, are ready to work with residents of downtown Far Rockaway to facilitate a productive use of this public land if it were to become Far Rock Garden. I will share this local proposal with you if I can fit it into 5 megabytes and upload it onto the system so that you can see their plan. I can also just give you this paper copy that I have with me. But the plan includes signatures from hundreds of residents who are in favor of this plan, letters of support from community organizations and greening organizations that are willing to give the group support in the actual build out of the space, as well as a mission statement, a green thumb application. You can see that at least 10 residents are ready to take on the task of actually managing this place so that it's going to succeed. So thank you very much. I think this public land will best serve public use if the city keeps it public and partners with residents to create this garden. So again, that's item 22 in particular on your agenda, ULURP 170248 PPQ.
Thank you, Ms. Kravitz. Yes, Commissioner Efron.
Thank you. It sounds like you're coming up with some great local support. Happy to hear that people want to manage the garden. There was a space that we saw, and I apologize that the map isn't up, where there could be additional
Yes, and
park space.
Yes, and why?
Yes, on the sanitation site. I just can't remember what street it is, and I'm sorry, I'm
That's
having
the
trouble
lot, that's the
looking.
lot.
Okay. Have you spoken to HPD about the parking lot and whether or not that could be, any of their RFPs could be incorporated into, to include green space that has some public access into it?
In regards to this particular lot, or
No.
I mean,
Well,
so
one
one of the residents who's leading the organizing of this project lives across the street from this particular place. and their plan has been for this particular place. I think you could talk to them to see if they're open to, stewarding the other spaces and growing food on the other spaces and creating space for children to enjoy the outdoors on the other spaces. And that's a conversation you can engage them in. But I know that this particular plan's for this particular spot.
Okay, so just ask whether you're in contact with HPD about, or EDC about any disposition of other spaces.
The
or
organizers have
housing.
have been in contact with HPD.
Thank you.
And yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Levin.
And can you just give us the context about the degree of community gardening activity in the surrounding area? Are there other community gardens? Is there an appetite for doing this?
I will read.
It takes a strong community to successfully support a community garden.
It does, and as I said, our organization stands ready to help facilitate that sustained organizing that will make sure that the spot's successful. To take from the proposal, the closest farm is on Beach 45th Street. It's a community garden, or a community farm there. The closest supermarket with above average produce is on Beach 70th, 3 miles from the Cormont Ave and Central Avenue. The next closest supermarket's in Inwood, Long Island. So I will pass on the proposal, but Allison Jeffries, who lives in the neighborhood, has done detailed analysis of the options in the area and believes that this is absolutely necessary to ensure that people have space where they can have access to healthy food, especially as the area is bound to become more dense.
Good, we'll take a look.
Thank you.
Other questions from the commission?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kravitz.
Thank you.
We will now turn to speakers who have registered in favor, beginning with Michael De Freitas.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael De Freitas. I'm a member of the Service Employee International Union, Local 32BJ. SIU 32BJ is the largest property service union in the country, representing 80,000 members in New York City and hundreds of members that live and work in Far Rockaway. Excuse me. I am testifying today to ensure that Far Rockaway rezoning provides good, sustainable jobs that will benefit our community in the years to come. We recognize the need for Far Rockaways. We recognize that Far Rockaway needs new economic investments. If done responsibly, the rezoning can lead to creation of new affordable housing and make downtown Far Rockaway the commercial hub for the peninsula. The rezoning will open up public spaces and make downtown area more inviting and connecting. It will also create hundreds of jobs. We estimate that about 75 new residential building service jobs will be created in the area as a result of the rezoning. We want to ensure these new jobs contribute to the community's economic revival. We have 2 recommendations to help us make sure this happens. First, we're calling on developers and owners of the 4 largest development sites to make early commitments to create good, prevailing wage jobs for building service workers. These are the type of jobs that have allowed me, as a building service worker, to support a family in Far Rockaway. These are the kind of jobs that would allow my neighbors and myself to continue to call New York home and to contribute to our local economy. Second, we're calling on the city to require that any projects receiving public subsidies or being built on public land pay prevailing wage and benefits to building service workers. The city has already included a prevailing wage requirement in the Beach 21st Street RFP. I'm happy to see this, and I want to continue to see this throughout the area. In their recommendations on this rezoning, Community Board 14 supported this plan under several conditions. One of them is that all workers, whether full-time or part-time, shall be paid a NYC prevailing wage. Borough President Katz echoed and supported this condition in her recommendations. I'm calling on the City Planning Commission to uphold the local community's call for good jobs, good local jobs, and include their prevailing wage resolution in your report. To close, I want to say again that 32BJ believes that the rezoning and investment in this area can be a very good thing for downtown Far Rockaway. I'm urging that the City Planning Commission consider the full potential of the economic impact on this rezoning and to do what you can to ensure that it leads to the creation of high-quality building service jobs. Thank you.
Very well timed, Mr. DeFreitas, thanks. Questions for Mr. DeFreitas? Thank you.
Thank you, I was very nervous.
Great job. Our next speaker is Ken Pappas. Welcome back.
It's not how you start, it's how you finish, Commissioner. Thank you. I'm in support of the project, obviously. This is in reference to Block 15661, Lot 70. My partners and I have assembled lots 1, 9, and 70 with the current property owner, who is a supermarket owner. There'll be a new supermarket located on Lot 70, Compare Foods, which will be opened up shortly. Our purpose of assembling all this and working with the current property owner is to provide affordable housing, community facility, and retail at Gray, which hopefully would increase the number of jobs in the area also. Our request, we have a request, is to extend the boundary line that's in the current zoning that's proposed. The boundary runs across Lot 7, which affects somewhat of our FAR, and we'd like to extend it to Dix Avenue on Beach Channel Drive. So essentially, we're just making that request, and we're in full support of the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pappas. Questions from the commission? Yes, Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi, just a clarification, I'm trying to look at the map here. So right now you're outside of the boundaries.
We are inside the proposed boundaries right now, but
What lot did you say? What block and lot?
70, Lot 70, 15661, Lot 70.
You're outside the special district.
Yeah,
then.
I'll walk over to you and show you.
Or is there a map?
Actually, if we,
Yeah, if we can get a map.
CDC have a map,
Oh, I'm looking at the original
Actually,
application,
it's-
sorry.
if you could show, yes,
Here.
thank you, that's helpful.
Right here. So essentially,
Original.
it runs right across. Here, this stays R5, this is proposed to be the R6. So we're hoping just to push it over from mid-block to Dix.
This is to prevent split lot?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
From the commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Pappas. Oh, yes, Mr. Dillon.
Can you just describe, I'm looking at the map now, can you just describe the adjacent properties?
The adjacent properties, currently, we have a large amount here. Okay? We have a vacant Checkers, which obviously we want no longer to be vacant. This is a meat market, which is by the sandwich, and this is the new supermarket that's going up. The supermarket will be staying.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Just what's the square footage of the new supermarket?
Okay, the new square footage is, I think it's 10,000 square feet.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Pappas. Our next speaker in support will be Patrick Mazza. Oh,
I actually have a question for him because I forgot to ask the question.
oh, okay. If you wouldn't mind waiting for another moment, Commissioner Efron has a question.
Sorry, I apologize. It's a quick one. Will you have on-site parking? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, then our next speaker in support will be Eunice Suh.
Good morning. Just make sure it's still morning. Good morning, Chair Lago and the members of the City Planning Commission. I am Eunice Su, Assistant Commissioner of Planning and Pre-Development at the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development. I am here in support of the proposed downtown Far Rockaway rezoning and urban renewal plan, which, if approved, will rezone parts of the community and include the second neighborhood-scale implementation of the MIH program. I wanted to start by providing some context of the Far Rockaway neighborhood. The median household income in this neighborhood is about $42,000, and asking rents in Far Rockaway are unaffordable to the average household. For instance, asking rent for a two-bedroom in the Far Rockaway is $1,700, meaning a household of 3 will need to earn $68,000 to afford that unit and not be rent burdened. Looking at the wider community district, nearly half of the households are rent burdened, which is higher than the rest of Queens. HPD has been active in the Rockaways, and this proposal will only build upon that work. Over the past 3 years alone, under Housing New York, HPD financed the preservation and new construction of nearly 1,800 units in this community district, 20% of those for homeowners. This includes 325 new construction units and approximately 1,400 units of preservation. The proposed rezoning presents an opportunity to unlock the ability to build a substantial number of new affordable housing units, particularly new construction units. Through this process, we've worked with EDC to engage a broad range of stakeholders about the housing issues and needs in the neighborhood. We have heard concerns about gentrification, displacement as a result of the new development and that the rezoning may bring. We've heard concerns that rents are already rising in the Far Rockaway. We've heard concern about sufficient programs for homeowners, particularly those homes that need repairs. As part of this process, we are trying to ensure that Far Rockaway residents understand and access HPD and city programs, and that we as an agency are addressing the housing needs in the neighborhood. The proposed rezoning and urban renewal area will enable a revitalized downtown through vital mixed-use development that will create a true mixed-income community here in downtown Far Rockaway. The housing to be created here will reach a range of incomes and household types, from very low income to moderate and middle income households. Mapping a new mandatory inclusionary housing area here will ensure that 25 to 30% of all new housing units created on privately owned sites will be permanently affordable. There are a number of potentially developable sites that could bring new housing in the near term. As part of the city's commitment to provide the broadest and deepest affordability possible, HPD is working with EDC on reviewing submissions to the Beach 21st Street RFP site. It will be 100% affordable and create approximately 170 units to a broad range of individuals and families. The proposed urban renewal area will enable a transformation of a derelict shopping center and parking lot into a vibrant mixed-use downtown center with up to 1,700 units of housing with at least 50% affordable. Very quickly, I'd like to just ensure that HPD and the city are working very hard to ensure that anti-harassment, we have multiple strategies that I can get into if you have questions about that. Thank you for your time.
Questions from the commission? Commissioner Deleuze.
Hi, Eunice, I would like to hear about your anti-harassment measures. That would be helpful. And then I would,
I'm sorry, the which parts?
the anti-harassment measures that you were
Okay.
talking about. And then if I can, I have a follow-up question about marketing.
Sure. So the city is deploying some tools such as free legal services to tenants in the Far Rockaway facing harassment. Mayor de Blasio has increased the citywide funding for these programs by tenfold. And there's also a interagency multi-jurisdictional tenant harassment prevention task force dedicated to investigating and bringing enforcement actions, including criminal charges against landlords who harass tenants. So the city is working with the state on this effort.
And do you have any local partners that you're working with on the ground on that?
Yes. I have a few members from HPD who are signed up for questions. I'm not sure if it's appropriate for this time. Okay. But we can get back to you on that.
Okay. And so the other question I had, and you raised it already, which was the median income and the median rents on the peninsula. And
the information is only from the census, the
the
immediate.
immediate census tract?
Yes.
Okay, that's helpful because the community board's median income, at least
It's
a little
higher.
data in the Furman Center, is slightly higher, not much higher, actually. And the rent burden portion that you mentioned is that also for the immediate area, or is that for the entire?
That is for the community district.
Okay. And considering the number of public housing units that are there, that actually, to me, points to the fact that the rent burden is much higher, right? Because in public housing, your rent is pegged to your income. So I think that really shows you that outside of the rent, of the public housing stock, how widespread the rent burden problem is.
That's a good point.
So I guess my question really goes to, HPD's had some recent projects, in the last 10 years or so on the peninsula. And I'm just wondering, what have you learned from marketing and lease-up and sale of those projects that can be applied here? What do you think the appropriate level of absorption rate is, if you will, and phasing. Because I have some concerns about the market, the need for affordable housing. At the same time, it's not as though there is a huge range of incomes here that, and I'm just wondering if the market rate side of things is actually, you're going to attract the people that you hope will actually come. I mean, it's very desirable, but it's also very far from, depending on where where your work is and things like that.
Thank you for those points. And HPD has seen a lot of changes in this neighborhood. Before 2008, there was an effort from HPD to invest more into the rural home ownership. After 2008 and the Superstorm Sandy, HPD did take a bit of a pause on some of the developments, and we are restarting some of that work. I think moving forward, there may still be home ownership, but there may be more of a focus on the rental market. And because of the changes in the floodplain as well, not so much in downtown Far Rockaway, but other parts of the peninsula, we want to be very cognizant of developing resilient buildings close to transit. So this area and this plan, I think, really supports that initiative. And we're trying to make sure we aren't building buildings that are going to be facing problems in the future.
Commissioner Efron.
Thank you. I have two questions. One is just to follow up on the speaker in favor of having more green space and specifically community gardens, and whether HBD is incorporating any possibility of community gardens in RFPs on public land. That's one question. And then the second one is about how to connect up the new citywide ferry from the Rockaway Peninsula to downtown Brooklyn, downtown Rockaway, and what the plan is.
So for the Beach 21st Street RFP right now, we, HPD and EDC are reviewing proposals. That proposal did not have a specific call out for the open space. However, we understand the need for publicly accessible open space and are certainly open to balancing the needs of open space and affordable housing on any development. So we are definitely open to those conversations. As for the ferry, I think that's a question EDC would be better able to answer, and we can follow up with that if that will be helpful.
Or a speaker from EDC would have to sign up as a speaker. Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi, how are you? You may or may not be able to answer this, but perhaps we can flag this for EDC if they're the right person. So with your other projects, I wanted to ask about parking, because I do know that the request by the community board was that a minimum of 75% of all residential units, presumably that includes the affordable units, have parking. We know that this is a terminus for the subway, and so having people be able to access jobs easily is that may not be accessible via the train or the Long Island Railroad might in fact be important. So I'm curious if in your other projects you've taken a census of sorts of the utilization rate or home ownership or car ownership, of your residents, and if we know what that is, because parking is not required under MIH, but it might be something to think about if we knew the extent to which some of these other projects, the residents need their cars.
We've certainly heard that feedback and we'll be incorporating into our analysis.
Oh, okay, so you are looking at that?
We will take a closer look.
Okay.
Yeah, but we don't have any information.
Have any information?
Not right now to share.
Thanks.
Commissioner Levin.
Yeah, I have two questions that are only semi-related. One is that aside from the public housing stock, what percentage of housing stock in this area is rent protected?
Rent stabilized.
Rent stabilized. And then my next question is about planning for public facilities that will be needed to support the new population, including in particular a school.
I will take those questions down in terms of, and there are other, I'm sorry. EDC will take the schools and then we'll get back to you about the percentage of the rent stabilization.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Ms. Sue.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in support is Nicole Garcia.
I'm here.
Good morning. My name is Nicole Garcia, and I'm the Queensborough Commissioner for New York City Department of Transportation. My agency is proud to be a part of the city's effort to build the foundation for a revitalized downtown Far Rockaway. The agency encourages your support for the proposed rezoning, urban renewal, designation, and disposition actions. For DOT's part, we have been working continuously with the downtown Far Rockaway community and elected leaders for close to a decade on developing a comprehensive streetscape design and master plan. The city and community's vision for a vibrant, resilient downtown only intensified after Superstorm Sandy, and DOT, as part of a citywide effort, proudly partnered with the council member and the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery to collaborate on a plan that would rebuild the streets from the bottom up while elevating the look, feel, and use for residents, shoppers, commuters, and other visitors. Based on conversations over an unprecedented level of outreach and engagement, DOT has developed an urban design and streetscape reconstruction project with the first phase addressing Mott Avenue between Redfern Avenue and Beach 17th Street, as well as the spurs on Beach 20th Street to Cornega and also Central Avenue to Foam Place. The project has 4 major components. The first, the transformation of Beach 21st Street into a transit priority corridor. The second is a new DOT plaza on the existing municipal parking lot linking the A train station to the Beach 20th Street retail corridor. The third is a designated commuter van stop adjacent to the A train. And fourth, critical infrastructure upgrades that reconstruct drainage and the public right-of-way. The scope of work incorporates Vision Zero strategies and includes a full reconstruction of the streets with expanded sidewalks, seating, street trees, and permeable paving throughout the district, as well as new sanitary and storm sewer infrastructure. Our street design and public open space efforts are the result of intense discussions with local stakeholders for how to reinforce and reorganize this transit-centric hub. It became evident based on the data, such as a historically underserved and underutilized parking lot, through our observations and the comments by stakeholders, that the municipal parking field and bus depot were neither feasible for increased bus layovers nor viable for a more robust bus station. Given the intense coordination to build out this infrastructure, DOT is looking to implement its project in phases. Of course, the critical safety components such as signal and standard street lighting, signage, street markings, and other measures will be implemented this year. For the larger capital components, DOT is working closely with DEP and others on the Beach 21st Street Plaza and street reconstruction. The Downtown Far Rockaway Streetscape Project was a recipient of the 2017 Public Design Commission Award for Design Excellence and truly reflects the collaborative efforts of the city and the community. Last sentence. The overarching goal of the street reconstruction plan are to reinforce Mott Avenue as a village main street with a connection to the existing neighborhood assets and recent public improvements, such as the Far Rockaway Queens Branch Library, and to help spur economic growth. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Garcia. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi, how are you? So with respect to the DOT Muni lot, we'd heard that folks are concerned about losing their parking. What's the utilization rate at that lot?
So while we were doing our investigation about the lot, we found that this lot in particular was 45% occupied during the day. Usually in our municipal lots, such as in Court Square, we see occupancy rates up to 100%. We also issue monthly permits, and what we found with this particular lot was that we had 5 applicants for quarterly permits.
So
It was
It's-
vastly
It's more than half
underused.
vacant.
Yes.
Most of the time.
That's correct.
Okay. And then, with respect to the street, and I had asked this of EDC, and the response was that they work with you to address mitigation for the impact that these construction projects have on small businesses. But what typically does that look like in your experience? What can in fact be done? And if you could share some specifics, I'd be curious, how we can help businesses stay in business through what is a very difficult time.
So absolutely. So whenever we do street reconstructions for DOT and we involve DEP, we have a special division that manages the permits. So we're working to make sure that businesses have adequate loading. Pedestrians, they have at least a 5-foot sidewalk, so the business frontages, et cetera. So we coordinate on the traffic patterns and the safety. And then also for building developments, whenever they go up, they also come to our agency if any of the work is in the right-of-way, so if they're in the sidewalks or in the streets, and we work to do a traffic mitigation plan. We also work, for this particular project, we've been working very closely with the community and large stakeholders in the area, so we will continue to have the conversation. We'll make sure to get to them early with information, take back feedback, and see if we can address any of their concerns, before they become an issue.
Mm-hmm. I know a number of other communities have worked on signage, to indicate to passersby that businesses remain open. Is that something that DOT participates in, or is that completely up to the community?
We do not. That's technically like advertising, which is something that we don't do,
Well,
but.
just saying that the district is open for business, it's not an advertisement for any particular business.
So sometimes, on the side, the sheds that go up, I know that some businesses and facilities, like they'll allow the businesses to put, something, but it's certainly something we can work with RDRC on. I can check.
Okay, but there would be no resources for that under this?
That I think has to be addressed by SBS and not for the street reconstruction project. I'm strictly infrastructure, so.
I'll note that we have an SBS speaker coming up.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sorry.
Yes, Commissioner Cirillo.
Thank you. Hi, Commissioner. So I'm always interested in understanding sort of the follow-up to the data that DOT provides with respect to the studies they do as part of the analysis of what the reality is today versus the, let's say, public benefit in the long term. So, and I always feel like, truthfully, there's a piece of the puzzle missing, and I think it's a critical one for DOT, particularly, given the jurisdiction of DOT. So the data shows that the parking utilization is at 45%. Okay, so it's less than half in the study that was done. And that's used to help justify or rationalize this, obviously, beautification project, which I don't have an issue with. But the piece that's always missing for me, and I've seen this happen before in other areas of the city where DOT does an evaluation and they have data. What does the agency suggest happened to the 45% of the drivers and parkers? Where does the agency see them going? Because the fact that it's underutilized with respect to the size of the lot today, there's still utilization there. So from a traffic, and I see the other priorities for this project involve not so much public space, there's a piece of it for public space, but it's about traffic and flow. And so how does your other plans tie into taking away even half of the parking from this lot?
So one of the things in our conversations with the community, we heard loud and clear, like the lot might be underused, but people still need to come to our community and park and shop, et cetera. So we worked very diligently with our staff, and to get ahead of the curve, we actually identified on-street parking that we were able to implement. We're increasing the hours of the meters. Someone had mentioned previously that they were only 1 hour. We are able to do this year, move them to 2 hours. So as part of the process in getting ahead of the curve, we were able to provide the community with 21 new metered spaces around this area. And we're upgrading and expanding the meter hours to 2 hours long. So it's speaking with the community frequently, and I think that we've demonstrated that. And we've already been able to replace some of that on-street parking in advance. And then to your question about the traffic, we're always looking to enhance safety and improve mobility. So the team had identified some problematic intersections that, as this comes online, we might see some issues. So we instantly did a study, and the community is going to be getting a signal this summer at Birdsall and Beach Channel Drive.
Okay, so, and thank you for that, and I'm glad that the analysis includes, and the planning includes dealing with mitigating the loss of the parking. And forgive me, I don't know this, is this a short-term parking, a lot used for short-term parking, where the expansion of the time for a meter would matter,
Yeah,
perhaps?
so you could pay for a daily rate
Oh, you
or
can,
like
okay.
up to
Got
4
it.
hours, so it's
That kind of
longer
meter.
term.
Okay, good, and I just have one follow-up question with respect to, and I had posed sort of this question and know that this is on the minds, I think, as Nate put it, with the team in dealing with this, but since public space is part of the plan here, is particularly with respect to the parking lot, I know generally DOT doesn't go down this road, no pun intended, without having a partner involved. I mean, it's not that you're going to then go and run this sort of public space here. You'll help create it, and then, so have you identified a plaza partner, or whatever we're gonna call this particular space at this point in time, or is this still in the planning?
So we have been working with RDRC, and they have been responsible for the other plaza, and we have very, very successful examples all across the city for working with local partners and programming them so that the community can use and enjoy it.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cantor.
Thank you. Has any attention been paid yet to phasing?
So yes, so we are doing the first phase, so Mott from Redfern to Beach 17th Street. And then we have a larger scope. Do you mean construction-wise, or like what streets exactly we're going to start with?
Where I'm going with my question, you've indicated that there's space available in the parking lot, and things will change as the sites are built out. And I was wondering, is all the initial build-outs going to be from, in terms of housing as opposed to the retail? Because if retail came in earlier, it would create, hopefully it would create traffic, and you might have a better handle at the end of the day on the utilization of that parking area.
So I'm going to defer to my experts who are more familiar with the construction phasing, so, and they're registered to speak.
Great. So Commissioner Cantor will hold that question for subsequent DOT speakers. Other questions for Ms. Garcia? Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Levin.
Despite the name of the agency, the Department of Transportation, we all know that it's really the Department of Streets. But it makes me wonder whether in all of your planning for the area, any work has been done to coordinate with MTA and Long Island Railroad to improve transit access to the area. Certainly that would help alleviate difficulties with parking, the more people who can get there without having to drive. And the Long Island Railroad station is a disgrace.
So we,
Not your jurisdiction, I understand.
So we have had many conversations with the MTA to figure out, particularly with the buses, because they were parking everywhere. We wanted to better organize that. So they have been very instrumental in helping to guide the development of the Beach 21st Street Transit Corridor. I'm proud to say that the comprehensive streetscape reconstruction plan is, we feel, and I think the MTA would agree with us, is there's not going to be any disruption in existing bus service, and we expect to see that through the better organization of the traffic pattern, the wider sidewalks, bus stations, a more comfortable place for transit riders to wait. It's just going to be an overall win-win experience for everyone.
Other questions? Well, thank you, Assistant Commissioner for Streets Garcia.
Thank you.
As you know, we toggle back and forth between those who are speaking in favor and in opposition, and we have an additional speaker in opposition, Allison Jeffrey. Is Allison Jeffrey available? Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm a resident of Far Rockaway. I moved to Far Rockaway when I was 8 years old. And when I was 30, I bought a house there. My parents lived there. My sisters lived there. So I'm here to talk about the land, lot Queens Block 15534, lot 70. And the EDC has proposed, So the EDC has proposed that this lot be sold to private developers. The community, we've gathered about 300 plus signatures from people in the community. Now, the community is already a gardening community, so we're asking that this lot be not be disposed of according to this gentrification project. We met with the community board. They proposed, they support us. They want it to remain as a green space. The thing about city-owned land is that once you give it away, you can never get it back. Once a house goes up, it's there forever, right? So Far Rockaway is a food desert. And if you don't know what a food desert is, it's a place where there's no healthy foods, there's no healthy food offerings. So the people in downtown Far Rockaway have to go about 3 miles to get the closest Stop and Shop. And then, so that's at Beach 73rd. So we're talking about Beach 9th, Beach 12th area. So that's a long walk if you don't have transportation. That's a long way to carry food on a bus or a train. The next Stop and Shop is in Inwood, another 2 miles. We have Bravos, we have Food Dynasties, we have Key Foods, we have multiple food delis, we have multiple Chinese food restaurants. We have about 2 Popeyes, 2 Dunkin' Donuts. McDonald's has been a staple since I was a kid. There's no healthy food offerings. And Far Rockaway, compared to the rest of Queens, has 78% heart disease. So it's a terrible issue. You cannot afford to give away this land. This is public land, and we, the people, do not want the land to be given away. We want it to be turned into a food garden. I was a New York City public school teacher for 5 years, teaching students with disabilities. And the thing about empathy, it's a very uncomfortable conversation to have, because it flies in the face of all your prejudices and your biases, and you have to advocate for people who may not have the power to advocate for themselves. So the garden would be a great initiative. It would allow schools to come and visit as trips. The local school, MS-53, which I went to, now, I bring up MS-53 because it's a neighborhood school. I went there, and then I went to Brooklyn Tech, and then I went to UPenn. So although it's a food desert, there are good things happening there. And the kids already have a garden at MS-53. They have fowls, they lay eggs, they garden. There's a teacher there that's already gardening. So, and when you go around in the neighborhood, it's a large Caribbean neighborhood. And so there are lots of people already farming in their backyards. I farm. And so we just want one place where we can all farm together so that we can change this direction of this place being a food desert, because I don't see any organic foods being offered. And the nearest Trader Joe's is in Hewlett and Cedarhurst, Long Island.
Thank you so much for your advocacy, Ms. Jeffrey. Questions for Ms. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Commissioner Efron.
Hi, I hope you can educate me. You are obviously a talented teacher. I understood from one of the earlier speakers in favor that that particular lot was going to be a supermarket. Did I write down the wrong lot? There's a 10,000 square foot supermarket coming, and it's not the lot. Oh, okay, so it's not 15661.
So this is item 22.
It's the sanitation site, fine. The
Yes.
same one we were talking about earlier for the green mark, okay.
Yes, so it's all already public land.
Great. And were you aware that there was another supermarket coming ideally to your neighborhood?
I was told that it would be a supermarket. I wasn't told what type of supermarket. However, in addition to other members of the community also wanted to be used as a compost site. Members of the community already grow compost. So we wanted to be a garden, compost, and a learning area where we can have books, give away books, book exchange. I've been tutoring for 20 years, so it would be a great place for when kids come, you'd be able to teach them about gardening. We want to have a sitting area, and there's really no great places to play within the direct vicinity. So the kids often play in my backyard, which is adjacent to the lot. But yes, the thing about supermarkets is that there's also the price associated with organic foods. I buy organic foods, and they're pretty expensive. So this is a cheap alternative to people that already grow in their yards to grow as a community and share that food.
Thank you.
Other questions for Ms. Jeffrey? Commissioner Delarose.
Thanks for being here, and again, thanks for your advocacy. So we heard earlier from Ms. Kravitz, who it seems like you're working together
Yes.
on this. Can you just, besides, needing a permanent place for this vision to unfold, what other kind of support do you think the city could provide? Assuming that a space is found, what other support do you think would be necessary in order to make this successful?
Are you speaking just a lot specifically, a green space? Well, there are so many buildings that are about to go up, and I think that is important. Again, city-owned land is very precious land. There is not a lot of it. The closest next city-owned property is around Beach 31st. So the fact that we have these two city-owned properties it's a creme de la creme. It's like you cannot, if you give it away, you lose so much. So I hear what you're saying about alternatives, but the
No, it was really more like, it wasn't so much a question of alternative as much as what else you would need to be successful beyond the lot. How else can we help?
Oh, so, yes, so we already wrote a garden proposal so, for example, if the lot were to be transferred to the Parks and Recreations, we wrote a Green Thumb proposal, and Green Thumb would come in, and they do this all throughout the city. So the proposal is ready. We've been meeting for the past year with other stewards in the community, meeting at the library, and so we just need for it to be maintained and cleaned, and and we'll do that part. I've even offered to give water from my house, right? Because there needs to be a way for us to, if we want a garden, to water the land. So we need a water source, other than, a permanent water source, and maybe some coverings like sheds to protect from the sun, because you get direct sunlight. So yeah, just help to maintain it. And a friend in the audience, my friend, has also suggested that Whole Foods has a grant initiative that they support efforts like this. So we don't mind doing the groundwork, like the written part and writing the proposals and the grants, but we just need help to maintain it and keep it as a green space, no matter what it becomes, whether it's a food co-op, but if it would remain a place where kids can come and learn, as well as give back to the community, that would be great.
I'll also note that we have a subsequent speaker from the Department of Parks and Recreation, so we can direct further questions.
Great.
Other questions for Ms. Jeffrey? Well, again, thank you.
Thank you.
We have no other speakers in opposition, so we will now continue with speakers in favor. Blaise Thacker.
morning. Chair Lago, who I guess just stepped out, and other commissioners of the City Planning Commission. My name is Michael Blaze-Backer. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Neighborhood Development at the Department of Small Business Services. At SBS, we aim to unlock economic potential and create economic security for all New Yorkers by connecting them to quality jobs, building stronger businesses, and fostering vibrant neighborhoods across all 5 boroughs. Since October 2015, my team has had the privilege of coordinating SBS's collaborative involvement in the Downtown Far Rockaway Community Plan with local stakeholders and our sister agencies. SBS has been an active participant in the important community planning and engagement work needed to effectively address small business challenges and concerns of Downtown Far Rockaway. And today I'd like to provide the Commission with more details of our ongoing work that is currently underway with the help of our community partners. The recently completed Downtown Far Rockaway Storefront Improvement Program, a partnership spearheaded by SBS with Councilmember Richards, the Mayor's Fund to Advance New York City, the New York City Economic Development Corporation, and the Rockaway Development and Revitalization Corporation, or RDRC, was the first major commitment fulfilled from the Downtown Far Rockaway Roadmap for Action, helping to demonstrate visible neighborhood investment. The Storefront Improvement Program helped renovate 18 deteriorating storefronts along Mott Avenue, Beach 20th, Beach 21st Street, and included the historic Smith Building. These renovations included new signage and awnings, masonry work, open grill security gates, exterior lighting and painting, door replacement, and preservation of architectural details. In total, the program invested $185,000 in Downtown Far Rockaway and prompted an additional $300,000 in private investment in these storefronts. SBS operates a network of 20 Workforce One career centers, including a center near Downtown Far Rockaway where we provide recruitment expertise, industry knowledge, and skill-building workshops to match candidates to jobs. Workforce One also offers comprehensive trainings for in-demand careers in fields such as transportation, healthcare, and construction. The center connects job seekers to over 300 jobs and trains nearly 100 people annually. In addition to our core services, the center also includes an on-site partner, Canva, to offer one-on-one intensive career coaching and financial counseling services. And recently, through the New York Alliance for Careers in Healthcare, or NIACH, SBS has been in discussions with St. John's Hospital about their workforce needs and ways to partner. The city also leverages SBS's network of Workforce One career centers to implement Hire NYC, the policy that requires city contractors to consider New Yorkers for employment opportunities created through eligible city contracts. SBS's Workforce One centers post these positions and help connect New Yorkers to the open positions created through the city's purchases and investments. Through Hire NYC and the Workforce One Career Center system, this administration is making sure that more New Yorkers have a first shot at jobs related to city projects and that employers have access to a pool of talent from the local community. For the small businesses of Downtown Far Rockaway, SBS will connect Rockaway businesses to our commercial lease education workshops to help business owners better understand the components and implications of signing a commercial lease. After developing an understanding of lease negotiations, Rockaway businesses in the process of signing a lease can utilize SBS's legal assistance services. This initiative connects business owners with pro bono attorneys who will review the lease and point out any concerns that should be addressed. SBS is expanding these services to help more businesses in Far Rockaway to adapt to the expected growth in the neighborhood. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, so look, timing is everything. I was so ready for a coup.
Questions from the commission? Yes, Commissioner Cirillo.
Okay, no coup.
The floor is yours again.
Thank you. Blaze, thank you. Let me just ask you a question. You mentioned a variety of different programs that are already in existence, and I know I saw you sitting here this morning, so you heard, I think, my previous questions. And given the role that you play in so many, neighborhood development, and this is sort of right up the agency's alley, I just wondered, you mentioned different organizations that you were partnering with already for different services or programs. And I guess I just wonder because, knowing sort of accountability and a focus is so important in the obvious end result. How are all these pieces in your mind as the agency that normally handles this? Do you, different partners for different programs, maybe in other neighborhoods, we've seen sort of one partner dealing with a variety of different services. But in this case, at least at this point in time, there are multiple partners who have different levels of internal experience and I'm guessing they're all different sizes and they have different financial capabilities. How are you seeing that as you look to the future? Because obviously we want to guarantee success in this community with this project and all the components of it. So I'm just looking for some insight from you on this and how you think that works, and how do you envision the reporting and the sort of understanding during the growth of this that all the pieces are working, whether it's a DOT public plaza or it's a workforce program or if it's storefront revitalization. How is that being packaged in this? And perhaps it's not you, but how do you see that working for the benefit of the community in the long term?
So I can speak to at least, some of that. I mean, certainly when I don't have as much, obviously, experience in the workforce development area, where we do have a number of partners. I think there's about 5 of them that are in our community partnerships program. And these organizations help just to serve as a feeder into the Workforce One network. It's largely about referrals, but also about bringing in expertise to do trainings where expertise already resides with other workforce development providers. When it comes to the neighborhood kind of development piece, which I think what you're largely asking about the, certainly the storefront improvement program, we worked closely with RDRC to leverage their relationships, and they were our outreach partner to really, help kind of, we were sort of running that centrally with someone on my team, and so working closely with Kevin and his team to, build, leverage relationships with property owners and businesses to get them involved. Certainly, there's a desire to share that knowledge with, as we have with Kevin and his team, and ideally that expertise kind of grows in-house, and with resources we can build that into something that is more sustainable in the long term. I do think, as my partners have touched on, certainly EDC, DOT, and us, I think we've all been in conversations about this with RDRC in particular. I do think they are, I would say in my portfolio, certainly our primary partner with a number of these efforts. So I think, I guess we are mindful that we're asking a lot of them as a partner where a lot of investment is happening, and I think we want to be sure we're not overburdening them, so perhaps supporting them in such a way where they have the resources they need, as well as sort of the support of the city agencies to think about this. And I realize, that we're obviously in the planning phase, and a lot of these sort of maintenance conversations come up, but it is an iterative process, as you know, and so I think we'll be working with them ongoing to determine what is the best route in terms of all the different components the city is asking of them, and perhaps we need to look at that closely, so we develop a meaningful and sustaining kind of infrastructure to kind of manage maintenance needs sort of in the long term. So I don't know exactly what the structure looks like yet, but I think it's certainly an ongoing conversation about ensuring that we are, I think, supporting RDRC and other partners that may exist. I mean, there might be sort of a need to find if there's expertise that doesn't exist that RDRC doesn't want to take on. We will have those conversations as well about kind of seeing how we could seed entities that support them and that they can.
Okay, so is there an expectation that, at least at this point in the process, the funding stream for these is not growing directly out of the community, but is sort of tax levy dollars going in to then fund the programs, but that for sustainability purposes, unless they are sort of perpetual funded programs by the city, that there will be some review of whether or not there's a community-based sustainable organization that funds these things, whether separately or in conjunction with other funding sources that may be governmental.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to exactly what resources have been committed at this point in terms of expense dollars to perhaps support this kind of work, but I think it's understandable that we'll be looking at a number of resources. We've actually used CDBG dollars to support RDRC in the past. With the storefront program, it was private funding via the Mayor's Fund and via EDC.
Right.
So I think we're looking at all opportunities. I think in terms of long-term sustainability, I think even with a bid-like model where you are really pulling resources from existing property owners, as you've seen from many of my testimonies here before, we are mindful of creating bids that are perhaps where you can assess sufficient assessment within the community to provide the resources needed. So I think while that could be an option we look at for sustainability, it is, I don't think it necessarily replaces the commitment from the city, and that's kind of the analysis I think we need to do.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi, Blaise, how are you? Two quick questions. So one on the signage, I was told to pose this question to you. And I think you're actually a great person to answer this because I think, your work on Myrtle and Marp's work on Myrtle during the construction really pushed the envelope in terms of, signage, trying to gain awareness of the fact that businesses remain open so we can help them through difficult time. Is that something that SBS is supportive of, and what can we do in this instance so we can keep businesses in business
Right.
through construction?
And the question previously was to signage on public infrastructure?
Yeah, and just generally, we have a whole slew of best practices that, not EDC and DOT sort of punted on that one. And, I'm curious if we can continue to sort of elevate those best practices in this instance.
Yes, I mean, definitely. I think that's exactly what we do in these situations. We leverage sort of the bid network and the rest of the LDCs and merchant associates we work with to pull best practices. And again, typically, it's not SBS doing, those in isolation, but really working with a local partner, working on the ground to share those best practices, identify resources to implement them. So, I think whether it's banners on street lights or whether it's more kind of an approach that's taken more within the private space, within businesses, kind of reminding people that they're open while construction is taking place. We've seen, recently, right, with capital construction of plazas, we've seen a lot of bids innovating there to make sure that people don't think a business is closed because there's perhaps scaffolding up or because, the roadway is closed, and really trying to pull them in during that. So we've been trying to, we haven't really, compiled that into a single resource yet. It is probably on our list of many sort of best practice manuals we are trying to roll out, but that is an important one, and we've been actually talking to the DOT's Plaza program about collaborating on something that begins to address some of these very place-based solutions for not only maintaining public space, but also these ideas of like pulling people in while construction is taking place.
And might there be resources in this case to support a local organization doing that work? We don't have a bid here, as we've just noted.
I think I think that has been something, I guess I can speak to other, other rezonings that have taken place where this is a real need based on the community and the existing infrastructure. So I think it's certainly something we would advocate for, is that, there's certain resources put forward. And again, I know the EDC team in particular has been in these conversations more than I have been, but I think they're very well aware that this is a need that we need, a muscle we need to help RDRC develop and help them to implement, so they're not reinventing the wheel, but really leveraging best practices from across the city.
I think that would be fantastic. And one other follow-up
And one
question.
thing that I'll note, Commissioner Ortiz, is that your question can be posed a third time because another EDC speaker is registered to speak.
I'm good. One other question. So I don't know if you're the right person, but you're the right agency. And you spoke about sort of jobs and job placement. I want to connect this back to the request by the community board that 75% of the residential units have parking associated with them, regardless of whether they're affordable or not. This connects back to jobs in my mind. Where are people who have limited resources getting jobs? Do we know, if most of these jobs require an automobile, or if, there's some sort of ability to use the existing transportation infrastructure? What kind of information might we be able to glean from your Workforce One data to allow us to consider that community board request?
I think I'll probably have to get back to you on that one. I know there's a lot of analysis, and there's been, I actually think city planning and our team have looked at that sort of the commuting component, right, of workforce development, and I think that's an important one. I know at this point, I guess what I can speak to more is, right, I know they've been working closely looking at, what jobs are actually in demand, and what sort of skills training needs to happen. and how to connect those with people who reside in the Rockaways. But in terms of where those jobs are located, I think it's something we can get back to.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Efron.
Hi, thank you for coming. I was just wondering if there's any base to build off of with regard to employment with the airports in this neighborhood. It's just something I haven't heard you mention. I don't know if there's any data showing that there is, but it seems by proximity to be really an opportunity.
And by base, meaning just job openings.
Yeah, or is there, does your Workforce One Center see a lot of airport-related employment now? Is there anything we should be taking into account, whether it's a van stop within this district that specifically is designated for airport transport?
I mean, definitely. So I mean, the Workforce One and that's near downtown Rockaway is not a sector-based one. I mean, it has access jobs from across the city. The one in downtown Jamaica actually is specifically focused or is sort of a sector-based. We're
We have
working
some
on
expertise on the
transportation,
commission.
right? So I mean, people can access jobs from all over, but certainly, I mean, that is I guess sort of an obvious place where the Workforce One team is working with the airport and the cargo industry and others to kind of source jobs and make sure they're in the Workforce One system. So it is, and the type of skills training that's happening. I know there's certainly some actual workforce development trainings happening on site at the Workforce One Center in the Rockaways, which is unique to, it's the only one, unlike in all the city, where we have 1,000 square feet to actually offer trainings there on site for people to get to, and some of those are related to sort of the cargo and shipping and airport-related jobs.
Other questions from the commission? Thank you. Oh, Commissioner Deleuze.
How are you? Thanks for being here. Actually, just kind of following up on the Workforce One data that you have and looking at what the demand is from the employers, and then, obviously I think the unemployment rate on the peninsula is higher than average. The foreign-born population is also pretty high, and about 27 or 25% have bachelor's degrees. It would just be helpful to, I think, in the follow-up information that you're providing to us to get a sense of, what are the sectors and the skill level required? Where's the population on the peninsula at? Where are the gaps? And then what's the city's plan, right, to address the gap very specifically? Besides, I appreciate the efforts for Hire NYC, but I really am speaking about workforce development or adult education investments to help close the gap. That would be helpful.
And I definitely, we can try to pull some of that data, but I could say that the role that Canva is playing there is actually also unique to that center, where it really is kind of layering on top of our existing Workforce One services in order to kind of address that very issue, right? Looking at the clusters of, if it is foreign-born New Yorkers, looking at sort of special needs they might have to make them job-ready and kind of tailoring those services. So that's exactly the strategy that's in place there, but in terms of the data itself,
It would be helpful then to know, like, the scale of need versus the scale that's currently operating at.
Sure.
Thanks.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Becker. I will note that we are 2 hours into this public hearing, and we have 14 more speakers, so I will thank the patient people in the audience, and note that this is a major initiative of rezoning of this type, a neighborhood plan of this type. Our next speaker in support is Nick Molinari.
Good afternoon, Chair Lago and members of the City Planning Commission. I'm Nick Molinari. I'm Chief of Planning and Neighborhood Development for New York City Department of Parks and Recreation. I'm here to speak on the proposed rezoning of downtown Far Rockaway. New York City Parks recognize the importance of our parks and open spaces in improving the quality of life for residents in downtown Far Rockaway and in supporting the revitalization of downtown as the commercial hub of the peninsula. New York City Parks has been working closely with our partner sister agencies and local stakeholders to better understand the priorities and opportunities for improving open spaces and parks on the peninsula. We participated in the first public meeting associated with shaping the future of downtown Far Rockaway in January of 2016, and also participated in the follow-up discussions and public open houses to update the community and gather additional feedback. Working closely with stakeholders, we've contributed to the Roadmap for Action, published last summer, and in the subsequent community meetings to present this report. We've been encouraged to see the emergence of creative ideas, the desire to prioritize quality of life issues, and to improve our open spaces in downtown Far Rockaway. As the draft environmental impact statement for the rezoning discusses, it's anticipated there will be an impact on overall open space ratio in the neighborhood. New York City Parks has been working with sister agencies to explore ways to improve our open spaces. Between now and the culmination of the ULURP process, we will continue to work with our sister agencies to develop approaches to mitigate open space impacts and to improve downtown Far Rockaway's open spaces. We'll continue to collaborate with New York City EDC, the Department of Education, Department of Transportation, Housing Authority, and City Planning to examine these opportunities and opportunities to leverage city assets to best plan for parks and open spaces as the downtown Far Rockaway area continues to grow in the future. We look forward to continued engagement with neighborhood residents and stakeholders and to contribute to the successful revitalization. I thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
know there's some
Mull.
specific questions too.
Great, thank you. Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Levin.
Well, I guess we really have a responsibility to ask about the sanitation lot.
Yeah.
I assume you were in the
Yes.
audience when the advocates for the use of that lot for a green thumb project
Yeah.
spoke. Is that one of the mitigation strategies you're looking at?
So we're looking at, there's a lot of different ideas on the table for that particular lot. An open space opportunity there is one of those. A garden could be a good opportunity there. I want to point out gardens are not necessarily mutually exclusive with park spaces. Some of the ideas we've heard from these last few years of interaction is people would like park spaces, playground spaces, gardens, areas for shared programming. So, you know, a garden and an open space wouldn't necessarily be mutually exclusive, and that lot in particular is sizable. It's about a third of an acre.
Okay, so you're taking a look.
We are looking at that lot.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Molinari.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in support is Reverend Al Cockfield.
Good morning. Quickly, I just want to speak in support. I was born in 1972 in St. John's Hospital. Grew up in Auburn on Beach 69th Street, and I now currently reside in Bayswater on Bessemer Avenue. So I can speak a lot about Rockaway. All of the projected concepts and plans that are coming will only benefit Rockaway. As for many years, there has been like a plight. If I can be a little religious for you for a moment, in the Bible there has a book called Nehemiah. And Nehemiah was in the king's palace, and he was comfortable there. But he asked a question about a community that was long overdue of a rehaul. And that is Far Rockaway. It needs an upliftment. It needs to attract new young progressive couples and families. My daughter just graduated Saturday from SUNY Albany. Where can she afford to live in New York City unless we bring more affordable housing and more options of bringing hope to a community that long has been overdue for new hope? Being that I've lived in Rockaway, I could afford to live somewhere else, but I chose to stay where I was raised and grew up, and I am happy that our councilman has dared to do something beyond our imagination that would come to a community that is well in need of it. Auburn by the Sea was a concept decades ago. That particular area, even though I grew up on 69th Street, I never walked up 69th to go to the beach. My parents who still live there now can now walk up, go to Stop and Shop, go to the YMCA to work out if they like or swim, and then return home without even driving. I want to be able to do that in Bayswater as well. So in case you have any questions, that's...
Thank you, Reverend, for that very personal and persuasive perspective.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Reverend Les Millings.
Good afternoon. I'm here today as a stakeholder in Far Rockaway. I've been a member of the Far Rockaway community for over 30 years. I've seen it all. seen the good, I've seen the bad, I've seen the ugly. You know, Parkway is a community that suffered failed disinvestment, broken promises, rapid decline, forgotten zone, you name it. Parkway has been through it, and we've been through all of that. But we did not just sit quietly and watch things go down the drain. We kept the community, and I say we because we've worked with a number of other organizations in the community. I'm the senior pastor of the Parkway Community Church of the Nazarene. I'm also the founder and CEO of a charter school network. My church is in the center of Central Avenue, where we have a middle school down the street on Central Avenue. We have another school in Hartman Lane, and we're doing other schools. So we've been working all these years to keep the community going. And a lot of our people, sad to say, a lot of them lost hope. But the Rockaway Downtown Revitalization Plan is a light of hope, a signal of hope, a light to some in the tunnel. Because Rockaway, the people in Rockaway are very proud people. They want something that they can be proud of. They want to know that they could go shopping in their community. They want to know that they could go to a restaurant and dine. They want to know that they are afforded quality education, affordable health care. They want the best of everything, just like every other community in the city. Health care to them should be a right, another privilege. Quality education, the same. And so we've worked hard to keep that going. So when the downtown Parkway plan came about, and I can't conclude this without saying thanks to Councilman Donald Richards, who spearheaded this. And I'm also part of the working group that worked with the community to ensure that whatever it is that's going to be placed in our community, the community itself would have a say-so, and that's what happened. Any questions?
Very deftly handled, Reverend. Questions from the commission?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker in support will be Seth Bornstein.
Good afternoon. I'm the director of Queens Economic Development Corporation. Our mission is to create and retain jobs. We've been active in Rockaway and all over the borough for many years. We're 40 years old, so I've seen all the many revitalization projects going back to this brickwork storefronts going back to the early 1980s. And I'm old enough to remember shopping at Zomix for black and white cookies with my great Aunt Sophie in 1961 or so. So I remember when the street was thriving. All the plans we've done over these years have been somewhat, they're wonderful, they're great, they're piecemeal. Here we have an opportunity to do a grand plan for this community. As the public process moves forward, it's important to understand how significant this project is for the whole peninsula. Over the last 10 years, many parts of Rockaway have really gone so well. Central Rockaway, West Auburn by the Sea, Beach 116th Street, Far Rockaway's lagged behind tremendously. Now's the moment. The rezoning, new investment, and concerted focus to work with all sectors of the community, downtown Far Rockaway can be transformed into a mixed-use community to bring new jobs and economic activity to the whole area. The positive impact of the project will extend from downtown with housing, retail, recreation, commercial space for all sectors of the society. This in turn will attract residents and build the economy. New development will help the borough entirely because we will retain millions of dollars in spending in the city, which we now lose to other areas. The creation of housing is extremely important because it builds people, it brings people there to stay and shop and work and play. And the affordable housing component is important because it's solely needed for everybody in the city. And we urge this project to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Bornstein? Thanks. We have another speaker who has registered in opposition to the project, Todd Qualvovo. perhaps while we wait, we will continue with another speaker in support, Kevin Alexander.
Good morning, well, actually, good afternoon. Let me just say, I'm so glad there was a buffer between Pastor Cockfield, Pastor Mullins, and very happy that Seth took that role as being the buffer. My name is Kevin Alexander, and I am the President and CEO of Rockaway Development and Revitalization Corporation, founded by local community residents, civic, clergy, and business leaders in 1978. RDRC is one of the Rockaway Peninsula's most established and recognized organizations with a proven track record in community economic development. Today, I'm here on behalf of RDRC to express our support of the city's plan and investment in the revitalization of downtown Far Rockaway. As you are aware, the Far Rockaway community has suffered from decades of disinvestment that have long left this community struggling for access to healthcare, jobs, and services. We believe that the downtown Far Rockaway plan will deliver a more equitable strategy for investment, resources, and infrastructure that will position the residents of this community to be competitive with the rest of the city of New York. We support the proposed actions for downtown Far Rockaway for the following 4 reasons. 1, in order to support the main business corridor on the peninsula, there needs to be a shift away from outdated industrial uses to more neighborhood-friendly ground floor, commercial, and community-oriented spaces. 2, there needs to be a mix of incomes within close proximity of this corridor to sustain a vibrant, diverse mix of businesses that can more adequately serve this community. And when I say that, we did a market retail analysis in 2013. The $91 million that the mayor pledged is the $91 million that's being lost within the downtown Far Rockaway area to Nassau County, Gateway, and other commercial corridors, both on and off the peninsula. My third point, a bright, thriving downtown Far Rockaway with recreation, food, shopping, and healthcare that can better service the community from a quality of life standpoint will also offer an economic impact, jobs for local residents, and increased sales by local businesses. Fourth point, from a resiliency standpoint, Far Rockaway is only 1/2 mile from 878, the only land-based entry and exit point into the Rockaways, with St. John's Episcopal Hospital sitting right on the outside of downtown Far Rockaway. The plan will improve transportation connections and roadways in and around the Rockaway's largest and most congested transit hub. Let me close by stating that the proposed actions provide a real opportunity to transform downtown Far Rockaway for future generations, and I encourage the Commission to approve the proposed actions in order to advance the downtown Far Rockaway plan one step closer to reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Questions from the commission?
Thank you.
Commissioner Cirillo.
Just a quick question. I'm sure you heard some of the questions I posed, and it seems that, at least in some of these areas, you're sort of the focal point of helping to deliver some of the amazing sort of existing programs and initiatives, and perhaps will be an important part of the future discussions of things that might come down the pike as a result of this proposal. So I just, as a general question, do you feel prepared for all of this? I guess that's the general question, because as somebody who sits in a similar role in a different neighborhood in the city, I know that the greatest thing can be to be looked at and given the responsibilities to do great things in your community, but the worst thing that could happen is that you're asked to do those things and you don't feel that you have the resources to deliver them. And so I guess I'm just asking you, based on the discussions you've had or looking toward the future, how do you feel about all of this?
Well, from a community standpoint, we're very excited.
Sure.
And as the head of the organization, it's always going to be a capacity issue. So we did a strategic plan 2 years ago. I'm literally taking that strategic plan and saying it's not worth the paper it's written on because of what's happening now and the timing and the needs of the combined city agencies in terms of needing an entry point and facilitating within the community. We're getting there, we're not quite there. And part of the challenge that we had quickly is there was a point in time where no other organizations that had capacity wanted to be in the Rockaways. So it did increase our scope. And what we've done after Sandy, we came out very clearly and said, these are the areas that we're going to begin to focus back on, which was more of the economic development. At one point, we were doing more social. But you know what? Even the social has an economic impact on every community as well. So we're trying to get to that balance, and as Blaise was saying, they're working with us. EDC's working with us. DOT's working with us to figure a way how to better align RDRC and also other organizations to take on a role, because things change. But the one thing that hopefully won't change is groups like RDRC that are grounded in this community, knock on wood, will be there for another 39, 40 years as this project comes to fruition. So we're getting there, is the short answer.
Good. I have, the community's lucky to have you in this leadership position. It's
Thank you so
obvious.
much.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi, Kevin, how are you?
Good, thank you.
At the beginning of this, Nate Bliss presented on behalf of EDC, and I asked a question about, whether we could support, as much retail as we're projecting with existing residents, with the leakage that we assume from existing residents, as well as the new units. Could you speak to, you mentioned that you've projected $91 million in retail leakage. Could you speak to sort of how you came to the conclusion that yes, you can support? Because $91 million in leakage isn't so much when you think that a lot of it is being spent and will continue to be spent in nearby neighborhoods, and there's probably not much we can do about that. So I'm curious sort of how you came to the conclusions you did.
Sure. So what we do know is, because we don't have economies of scale, a part of that number will be, for instance, we're not going to, I know Rockaways used to have downtown, have car dealerships. It's less likely that we'll have car dealerships, at least for the foreseeable future. So that's a big number we won't have. But what we are seeing is an increased demand for types of services. So we do a lot of the market studies, whether it's the consumer, whether it's looking at the 8,500 area workers that go in and out of the Rockaways, and I think there are about 10,000 commuters that go through, and we ask them questions. What would it take for you to shop in downtown Far Rockaway and not just go through it? So we are thinking that, well, actually we know now where the gaps are in terms of retail. We also know that sit-down restaurants is a big issue in downtown Far Rockaway. The quality of services, it's a big gap in downtown Far Rockaway. You would think in an area that has a tremendous amount of public housing and persons receiving some type of subsidy, there would be more focus on furnishings, because a lot of the apartments turn over and they have vouchers to purchase furnishings. So we're beginning to figure out where the gaps are. What I will say is this: over the last 2 years, with the announcement of the investment in downtown Far Rockaway, with the opening of the plaza that we manage, the Beach 20th Street Plaza, with the storefront improvement, we're beginning to get the calls coming in from other businesses, one, either wanting to start up, or two, relocate from other areas of the peninsula or in surrounding areas to come into downtown Far Rockaway, which is a great, well, could be a great thing for the downtown community. So our vacancy rate right now, 3 years ago was 8%, it's down to about 5% right now. It's not the right mix, but we're trying to get the property owners to now think bigger, think about filling the gaps as opposed to just replacing what was there with the same thing. So those are things that we're looking at now. And we think that with the planned development, the number of families coming in, and yes, it will be, a large percentage will be permanently affordable. What we have found out, especially in our public housing, there are two economies. There's the economy that you know, and there's the underground economy that exists, that families support themselves with. And we know that's coming into downtown Far Rockaway. We just have to do a better job at attracting it and giving it a reason to come in and invest their money.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Alexander.
Thank you, everybody.
We will now turn to a speaker in opposition, Todd Quao-Vovo.
Good morning, everyone. So I started off with the wrong check. So I'm actually in opposition in support of
Okay.
Queens Block 15534, Lot 70, and the creation of a community garden. Just to give you a little background about myself, I am a engineer by trade. Been working as a product designer for HVAC equipment and an independent engineering consultant for nearly a decade. And I know firsthand the criticality of complex projects having multiple components that are needed for a cohesive, sustainable, long-term solution. To give a little more background, worked on green HVAC equipment that not only provides energy-efficient solutions for mission-critical applications like data centers where it has to work, but it's also meets performance expectations, it's reliable, and is good for the environment. And so I see this community garden as as an example of the type of piece to the overall puzzle that helps for the long-term development and sustainability of downtown Far Rockaway. So I'm just gonna give some background on the benefits to having community gardens. So one, it's a reduction in the carbon footprint. There's an excessive amount of time that's typically used with transporting food across this country. And so by having locally grown sourced food, it reduces that transit time and overall carbon emissions. The economic benefits to local government. There's studies that found that there's been increases in the property value in neighborhoods where community gardens were developed by an average of $25 per square foot. And so local governments saw $9,000 increase in tax revenues because community gardens were established. It also found that community garden maintenance is actually less than the maintenance of a comparable parkland. It also serves as an opportunity for employment, entrepreneurship, and education for local members of the community. In terms of food production, communities found savings of $75 to $400 in food costs per season. Health benefits, I think that they're obvious, is an increase in consumption of fruits and vegetables, as well as the reduction of exposure to chemicals and pesticides. By increasing this consumption of fruits and vegetables, there's reduction in mental fatigue, improved concentration, improved productivity. It's also crime prevention aspects by giving the youth and local students the opportunity to use this as an opportunity to learn about habitat restoration and more science-based learning that helps steer them into STEM careers, science, technology, education, and engineering and math. So just a quick overview, there's a lot of benefits to having a community garden. And I think we would be remiss if we missed out on this opportunity to take advantage of an initiative that will really go a long way to supporting the members of downtown Far Rockaway in a multitude of ways. So, any questions?
Thank you for bringing a unique engineering perspective. Questions from the commission?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.